Hey, good morning, everybody. Now, I'm recording this after I got done because I inadvertently forgot to press the record button. Yeah, it's one of those days. All right. So please don't feel like you missed anything. Don't worry. There's no YouTube stream up in this because my computer's been kind of weird. This is, again, one of those where I'm just going to kind of give you some information, give you kind of a challenge, and have some fun. Really, the big goal of this is we're going to talk about at the end building bird's nest, but a lot of it goes with what can you be doing and what things can you do in the along with what's going on in the environment. Okay, you can be a part of science, you can be a part of things that are going on, and you can be part of what is actually happening in the world around you. So in this wide world of science, we've got a lot of interesting things happening. We know that 2020 has been really weird so far, and we're not even halfway through it. Okay, yes, we've had a pandemic of COVID-19. There's nothing we can do. We're all probably tired of hearing about it, but it's also changed the way that we respond to things. It's changed how we act and interact with each other. I'm not saying if it's bad or good or what it is. It's probably smarter in the long run that we're more wise about how we work with others, but it's also going to change how we deal with other disease outbreaks in the future as well, because we got to think how we've done this, all right? But because a lot of the people we've kind of locked down, or we've really tried to restrict as much interaction with people where the virus has been spreading quite a bit, okay? And no, Nebraska is not immune to it. There's been some big hot spots, okay? There's been some really big areas that we have some concerns. Even though a lot of places are slowly opening again, there's still some hot spots. But because we've closed things down, nature has been responding because we as the humans haven't been out there as much. The biggest thing that we can see in the environmental news is that carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions from us as human beings has actually dropped about 15 to 20%. The article up here, this talks about, says travel and other restrictions reduce daily carbon dioxide released to the 2006 levels during April. I didn't read that headline far enough. Okay, that means we've reduced it from where it is now to about 15 years ago carbon dioxide level, which means that, well, we can see that us as humans are putting a lot of strain on the atmosphere, especially with carbon dioxide output, all right? So with that, we've actually seen other greenhouse gases go down. This is nitric dioxide, or nitrogen dioxide, excuse me. A lot of things that are emitted because of exhaust combustion. Neat thing to see is this, okay? If you look at this, the darker the number, the more we get to 500, what's called micromoles per meter. Don't worry about that, okay? Just means the darker the number, the whole lot more concentration of potentially harmful gases are. If you look, this area right here has some of the most, some of the biggest numbers, especially right around here, and that happens to be the capital center, Beijing, right here. Okay, I'm going to put a blue dot right here for Beijing right here. I'll put a blue dot for here. All right, I'm going to put a red dot for where Wuhan is, where they have talked about where it's probably started. Okay, another big major industrial place is Shanghai right here. Okay, and then down here we all know, well, you guys might not know, we got Hong Kong sitting down here and down here. And so you can see where it was very heavy in the major urban areas. And even along these darker paths, these are where you have a lot of traffic. So all of these yellows and so forth are your major city. Over here, this is even Seoul, South Korea right here. I'll put that with the pink dot right here. There's pink, there's Seoul. And you can even see South Korea a little bit too there. The neat thing is this was from early January, the early parts of January. This was actually during their Chinese New Year, where there's a lot of travel, a lot of things going on. Okay, look at these numbers, some big, heavy spots of, you know, major amounts of nitrogen dioxide. okay, exhaust, factories, etc. A month later, once the country of China goes into a lockdown, okay, they really lock down pretty hard compared to the United States. They really, really lock down. Not just because of their type of government, but because they knew they really had to get on top of it before things spread badly. If you look at this area here versus this area here, if I were to kind of circle in purple again, it was right about here. I'm going to try to make about the same circle. I got to go out a little bit further. Right about there. If you look here to here, a big reduction from 500 to 125 or less. So that's about a 30 to, well, probably 50 to 60% reduction. It's a really big reduction. So that just shows that we as humans have a huge impact on the environment. So we've seen some of those things, right? Okay, we know that we have an impact, and how much, this is actually showing it right here, right? When we also think about it, we can see actually a lot of places that have cleared up. The smog over Los Angeles has cleared up considerably. You can actually see downtown Los Angeles from the mountains. It used to be a foggy haze of smoke and fog. But then some other things have happened too. Some good things have happened, but also some bad things have been happening. Well, not great things, which is Antarctica set a record temperature of 65 degrees. Now, right now outside, on this day of Wednesday, the 27th of May, we are at 10:40, we're hitting about 64, 65, 66. So right now's temperature on this day is actually about the record high for Antarctica. Yes, the thing where we think we have penguins freezing and it's ridiculously cold, which it usually is. But it set a record for high temperature, which means a lot of those ice is melting. Okay, it's kind of destabilizing their ice shelves. Okay, it puts more fresh water into the salt water, which changes the environment. Those are some really crazy things happening. But I'm sure, and a lot of that they think is tied to the amount of greenhouse gases and warming and changes by us as humans. But also we have to worry about intercontinental species. Not only do we have those things to worry about, now we've got murder hornets. Okay, murder hornets, the 10 millimeter little guys right here, they have about the thickness of your thumb for a stinger. That's going to hurt, be painful. But the other big issue with this, okay, and they created a task force. Why? Because the murder hornets, okay, the Asian hornet, okay, is known for attacking and destroying honeybee colonies. Now, the natural enemies of these hornets in Asia know how to respond to them. Okay, they respond by swarming them and basically overheating them and cooking them. The American and European honeybees don't know how to respond to these yet because they haven't had this as a predator. The biggest reason we have to be concerned with that is because honeybees are a big time pollinator for a lot of our plants and our crops. Yes, some of our crops are wind pollinated or water pollinated. Specifically, corn is a wind pollinated because it's so tall. But you have to think about things like soybeans, wheat, things like that. They need wind, and they also need some pollinators here and there to actually produce. Specifically, our fruit trees need a lot of that too. Okay, it helps. All right. Big issues come from not having honeybee populations. Not because we don't get honey. It's because they are so important in keeping our plant diversity going. And so it is important that we kind of get involved with this and know this, and I'll come back to this here. And we get involved in our nature and know what's going on with what's called citizen science. Now, when we look at citizen science, we can see some really cool things. All right, specifically, okay, we can do a lot of neat things. All right. I'll talk about that here in a little bit, but I want to kind of also talk about the other things that are going on. So actually, you know what? I'll jump ahead. I'm going to redo this a little bit. Some of the things you can do to be involved in the world around you when it comes to your natural environment is you could help identify bugs, which they always look for, or you can look at what bugs you have around you so you understand what is around you. I've used Bug Guide on some moths and butterflies that I didn't know. It's a great site. It'll give you choices, and it basically gives you, does it look like this or does it look like this? And you click and it will help narrow down what bug it is. Okay. It's also important to know this because slowly in Nebraska, the emerald ash borer is making its way in. Okay. Again, there's no known predator for it. It was brought over from parts of Asia. It just happens. It gets carried along. It happens. Don't blame them. Things have been brought over from Europe and all over as we've traveled across. Things happen. It just happens. Okay. This ash borer is known for destroying ash trees. Okay. When I know that the city of Lincoln has taken down a lot of ash trees, same with the city of Omaha, and replanted different things just because they don't want to spread it and because they don't want it to be carried all over the place. That's why there's a lot of firewood restrictions, not bringing it from state to state and place to place, because they don't want the chance of spreading. Another thing I was interested in is I had to help cut up a branch for a tree a couple doors down. Actually, it's my wife's parents. They have a green ash tree out front. Great shade tree, really nice tree. Well, the branch split off because of the storms a few nights ago, but there was some weird rottingness to it. I actually took my chainsaw and some knives and cut open some of those logs just to make sure I didn't see any tracks in there. Why? Because that's super duper important to make sure it's not there. Because if it is there, it needs to be reported to the extension office so they can either treat it or they can warn people so they know that it's there. Okay. And also, if it's not there, then we're good. Okay. So you prevent things. So use that to your advantage. Okay. Let me do one thing. I'm going to actually pull up emerald ash borer tracks. So if you're ever looking to see what things happen, and yes, sometimes you actually do see these, it'd be directly underneath the bark of a tree. In the ash borer, I was kind of curious about it, and I wanted to make sure that it was okay. I didn't see anything like that. You might see some ants and things like that. So I was very much focused on this picture right here. Notice it has these deep digging tracks of how it kind of works its way through and destroys it from the underneath. That's why you can't see it. That's why they're concerned about it. Okay, so kind of a neat thing. Well, not really neat, but just so you know that it's out there. Okay, bug guides are great, fun thing to do. I've used it a few times. Okay, if you really want to look at the life cycles of plants and help make sure people know what's going on and how to view it, you could go to what's called Bud Burst. It's a little bit more complex, kind of neat, but it is fairly complex. You'd have to do a lot of documenting. But the one that I find, which is really great for citizen science, especially if you enjoy birds. I'm listening to the birds that are outside right now. They just chirp and chirp and chirp from about 5 in the morning till about 8 at night. They're like, beep, 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 beep. They don't stop. And especially then the squirrels yell at them too, which is hilarious. Go to what's called Cornell Ornithology or search Cornell University and Birds. Number one, they have a great app for identifying birds. And number two, there's a whole lot of other citizen science that they do. You may have heard that term. You could even search citizen science. There's actually a website to it. You could be involved in something. If you're interested in it, read up on it, find out how you can do it, because there's a huge natural world around you and a natural environment that you can be a part of and do some research on and actually help. Okay? And not just only is there the natural world, there's also the universe too. And 2020 has some strange things happening as well in the universe. A lot of it deals with the planetary alignments, where it is all of those strange things. It's just a neat year. The one thing I do like to show, and we kind of talked about, I couldn't find all the information I was hoping to find, but I did find a good chunk of it. This site right here called Sea and Sky has some really neat explanations of the year for celestial events. These are the sky things. We've missed quite a few of it, but if you scroll down, I know this might make you a little dizzy. Some of the neat things that we can see coming up here, we can see Mercury at the highest point in the year. We just missed the comet Atlas coming by. There's some lunar eclipses that we will be coming up, but we can't see it yet. There's one in November, a lunar eclipse that's at night where it kind of turns a reddish color. We'll see that in November. There's a solar eclipse, but that's actually in South America. There's actually two. They're in South America. The cool one is July 14th. Jupiter is at its closest point to the Earth. You can actually see with binoculars the planets that are bright little dots on each side of the planet, which is kind of cool. If you have a good telescope, you might actually be able to see some of the cloud band details. I have a telescope. I'm hoping that I can get it set up and running. And if I can, I'm going to try to take pictures of it. Saturn is also very cool. You can see it looks like medium-sized or large telescope will let you see rings. And then one of the other neat things, we hit another full moon. And the wild thing about this full moon is it's called a blue moon because that means it's the second full moon of the month. It doesn't happen very often, but the wild thing about it is look at what day it is. It's October 31st. So not only do we have a full moon on October 31st, that's Halloween. So as weird as you guys are, it'll be even weirder. I know, crazy. So there's a lot of neat things happening, a lot of meteor showers, a lot of really cool stuff. There's a few other unique things that I can't remember off the top of my head. There's a lot of interesting planetary alignment. I don't think there's a whole lot going on next year. A lot of supermoons. Not much is really happening. Yep, not a whole lot's happening. Okay, just a lot of meteor showers, things like that. You can search for 2020 and some interesting astronomy things. I've always been looking. There was something about planetary alignment this year. I'm not 100% sure what it was. I just can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry, guys. But when we go back to this here, the one thing I'm going to bird's nest, my human scent is going to drive them away. Well, yeah, it kind of will. If you do it with gloves, you might be able to put it out there. Or you could maybe partially build it and see if you get some birds and things taking off and building nests. But it might be a little bit too late because it's not quite mating season. Okay, if that makes sense. It's a little bit past. The only reason I know is there are little baby robins, not at my house, but at my in-laws' house. They hang out in this right here by the gutters. It's kind of cool. A couple nights ago, we saw them. Their little birds were out with their mouths open. They were hungry. So you'll need a lot of natural building materials, grass and twigs specifically. You should be able to get a lot of grasses right now because the lawns are really, really long because of the rain. Okay, you'll need pipe cleaners to help you keep the shape, scissors, patience, maybe a big stick so you can build it in the crook of something. Okay, so for example, the most common ones that we see a lot of cup shapes with the birds that we see around here. Sometimes you see a modified cup shape, which is flatter, which is more like a platform, but you'd see that kind of high up in trees. Those would be your bigger birds, like your eagles and your hawks. They would build more of a platform where it's up on top and a little bit, they're kind of cup shaped, but they're also on top of something, so it's more like a platform, a little bit flatter. If you know where eagles and hawks are, they're really, really huge platform cup combo things. Okay. Notice this one's built out of grass and twigs right here. This one is built out of mud. Okay, this would be more like a robin or an oriole or a cardinal. These are actually either starlings or martins. I think they're starlings. But this is built out of mud and whatever else. Because I bought my grandparents' house, I know that when I was a kid, there were these nests in there and they were used. I don't know if they're used anymore, but I know that there's at least 2 of them in there that you can see in the rafters. Really old, really cool nest. Kind of cool, kind of neat. Notice it's the same cup shape, but it's not built out of twigs. It's built more out of mud, which is a little bit more rigid. It won't get blown over as much, right? And then I didn't get a real good picture. It's hard to get it on my property because it's way up in a tall oak tree. And it's also covered by leaves. If this were earlier before the leaves came out on the oak tree, it would have been easier to see. It's actually a squirrel's nest. It's kind of a weird combo. It's a dome shape, kind of like a cup if you were to make it a circle, and it kind of hangs and it's nested like a bag. Sometimes you see birds that build bag nests. Sometimes you see them build those modified cup shapes. This is kind of a squirrel nest that's a combo. They don't always live in trees. And yes, birds and other things do make homes in trees. Okay, they do make homes in trees, right? Those are just insect. Okay, owls do that, squirrels can, woodpeckers, those things, they'll build houses in trees. But most of the time what you run into are the cup shape or platform or bag shape for the most part. We don't see a lot of bag shapes here because the birds, at least I haven't. The squirrel's nest look a lot like bag shapes. They're kind of more like domes that you can go into, but they're also kind of a modified cup shape. So if you were to build your own, oh, I broke it. Yep, all right, perfect. If you were to build your own, it would look kind of something like this. I gotta find that video. I know what that means. Give me 1 second. There it is. Okay. This is a good video that explains what's happening now and how to build it. Now, I didn't do this. This was done by one of the science guys a long time before me. And it shows you kind of how to build this. So notice we've started with a pipe cleaner frame. Okay, we started with a pipe cleaner frame. We've got this big stick to build it into the notch of something. We've got plenty of grass and twigs here. And he's going to start by winding this dried grass. Notice he's gone around it and he's kind of gone down. So he's kind of making a normal shape, a solid shape. Because you want to weave kind of the bottom in along with that. So you kind of want it bottom and you want the top part weaved into it so it holds it. He's going to work on building up the sides, stretching it out. He's using the pipe cleaners to help shape. Notice birds usually don't. That's just because they're birds. All right. And he is working on building those. So you use the pipe cleaners to keep it tighter, trimming off some of the excess, which birds really don't. They just somehow make it work. All right. So kind of widen it up there, sticks for support. Put a little pipe cleaner up there to build a little bit taller, add a little bit more in there. And then when you're done, if you can still find some candy eggs, you can put them in there. And there you have a basic everyday cup shape nest. Now, I'm not going to build it for you. Number one, it's been too wet. Number two, it's kind of crazy. But also, I'm going to leave the challenge up to you. So go back, watch the video, look at some examples, and what you can do is show me next week when we gather together to build some golf ball or ping pong ball, actually both we have them, catchers. Show me what you've come up with, all right? Yes, it's a little bit different. It's more like a camp where I give you some instructions and some background, and then I just kind of turn you loose and let you build. That's how it's going to go this summer, all right? So if you have any questions, email me and let me know. Otherwise, guys, have a great week. See you next week, same time, same place, where we build a golf ball and ping pong ball catcher. We're going to see how high you can drop it without having it bounce off the ground. Can't touch the ground. Have a good one, guys.